silent scan.
This is Far Cry 5. No, wait, that was Far Cry 4. Okay, this is Far Cry 5. No shit, that's Far Cry 3. Right, okay, this is definitely Far Cry 5. You'll have to forgive my mistake, but I think it's safe to say it's quite an easy mistake to be making. There has been plenty of coverage leading up to its imminent release, and this pre-release material all looks eerily similar to the two previous iterations in the series. The antagonist, the outpost, the wildlife, the bow and arrow, it's all there, just like last time and the time before that. People clearly enjoyed the series, certainly enough for Ubisoft to keep making it. But as we close on another release that follows exactly the same formula as its predecessors, let's take a look at why Far Cry 5 might be one game too far for the series. Since Far Cry 3, the series has known exactly what it is. It isn't a series that has a high and mighty opinion of itself. There are no delusions of grandeur here. It's a big chaotic fuck around, an extreme sports holiday gone awry, a brilliantly dumb B-movie experience. The game drops you in a systemic world where everything is capable of interacting and influencing one another, and equips you with an ever-expanding tool set, encouraging you to experiment with the systemic world and fuck around to your heart's content. The developers have previously explained their design philosophy for the series as building an anecdote factory, with the expressed intention of providing the player with unique, personal stories every time they play. And that's what players love about Far Cry. There aren't many games out there that allow you to fly in on a mini helicopter, rain down hellfire with your rocket launcher, then jump 200 feet and sink your knife right into someone's skull upon landing, all whilst a pack of nearby wolves are attracted to the noise and tear through the outpost, attacking anything that they could possibly pop on a plate for their dinner. Far Cry is very good at what it does, unparalleled in emerging chaos. Whilst the main narratives of Far Cry 3 and 4 are quite bland, the antagonists completely steal the show. Far Cry 3's Vas Montenegro is a drug-addled pirate captain who toys with any holidaygoers who dare set foot on his island, whilst Far Cry 4 stars Pagan Min, the well-dressed king of Kyrat, who flips between being a lovely chap and being a tad unhinged. Your interactions with these two characters are sparing throughout each game, but they're so well written and so well voice acted that these brief vignettes are some of the most iconic moments in gaming.
And I got blood on my fucking shells.
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity? Oh, Jesus.
It's not all happy fun times in Far Cry though, and the series has suffered from the dreaded Ubisoft syndrome. Climbing towers to reveal portions of the map, a map which is littered in hundreds of icons denoting insignificant side jobs and collectibles. Hunting for animal pelts or foraging for flowers to upgrade your gear. It's all just busy work, and these tasks just scattered across the map like a Jackson Pollock painting, simply to make the world seem more full than it really is, to bulk out the experience. I want to spend my time doing cool shit, blowing stuff up and interacting with these captivating villains, not picking dandelions to craft bigger pockets with, just so I can carry more fucking dandelions. For better and for worse, Far Cry 5 doesn't look to deviate from this formula whatsoever. Set in yet another rural playground, just this time in Montana, USA, the game builds on those systemic staples, complete with planes, explosives and grizzly bears, all of which will play out just like the previous games in the series. The antagonist this time around is the father, an eccentric cult leader who has seized control of Hope County. It all sounds very familiar, doesn't it? This game isn't taking a new direction, but rather it's just along for the same ride that the series has been on for some time now. There's definite merit in Far Cry offering up a consistent experience across the series, and fans of the previous two games will surely find a good time in Far Cry 5 too. Early impressions tell of an all-around more refined experience, with tighter controls for shooting, driving and flying, great writing, gorgeous environments, and all without some of the annoyances that have plagued this series, such as climbing those fucking towers. On top of that, we have a new story to experience, with new characters, new locations, new set pieces, and a new villain to step into the shoes of series favourites Vas and Pagan Min.
I once was lost, but
But once the dust settles and you're no longer experiencing Montana, the Father, or Cheeseburger the Diabetic Bear for the first time, what you're left with is the same gameplay, the same systems and the same mechanics that have made Far Cry what it has become over the past 6 years. It'll be fun, sure it will. I mean, wreaking havoc in any game is fun for a few hours. But the kind of unique stories that Far Cry 5 can offer up, those spontaneous moments of chaos where the game just conjures up a perfect shitstorm, they won't be all that different from the stories you experienced in 3 and 4, because that's just the nature of the systems and the player's toolset being largely the same over the course of 3 games. Because ultimately, it's just the same scrapes that you were getting into in 3 and 4, and after a while, people just want new, they want fresh, and they want different. And that's a huge problem for the Far Cry series. The main selling point of these games is the open-ended nature of the gameplay, having complete freedom to complete your goals however you like using the systemic world as your canvas. So when the emergent gameplay becomes stagnant like it has, the main selling point of the game does too. The whole reason you should buy Far Cry 5 is the same reason you bought 3 and the same reason you bought 4, for the same experience but with a new lick of paint and a big old 5 slapped on it. If you just want an explosive emergent playground to fuck around in, just buy Far Cry 4. You'll have the same experience, but you'll save yourself 40 quid in the process. This leaves Far Cry in a similar situation to another Ubisoft IP. Assassin's Creed had become a much maligned figure in the world of video games, with the yearly release cycle grinding down the patience of its fans into a fine mist. It was many a year ago that Assassin's Creed had its glory days of Ezio Auditore, and the release of Syndicate was the final nail in the coffin for the copy-paste development cycle that the series had fallen into, selling worse than any other release in the series. So Ubisoft responded. They took a year out from development to refocus, to redirect the series, and then 2 years later they released Assassin's Creed Origins to good critical reception. The developers realised they just needed to take a step back and reevaluate what the series started as, what the series had become, and what they wanted the series to be. Let's be clear, Far Cry is far from the laughingstock that Assassin's Creed became. The basis of the Far Cry games are solid, the design philosophies behind it are exciting, and there is clearly talent in the teams that produce it. But the formulaic nature of the development of the series is leading it down a similar path, where people get bored of having the same experiences no matter how great they were, and become less accepting of the more questionable elements of design, with the frustration of stagnation pushing these grumbles to the forefront. As such, the game needs to be redirected to focus on the 2 main elements that make Far Cry the spectacle of chaos that it is, the emergent gameplay and the whack job villains. First off, get rid of all the busywork side quests. I don't want to collect flowers, I don't want to do races, I don't want to have to hunt down 50 fucking yaks just because some fucking fashion blogger wants some new fucking shoes. I don't need all this guff, it's not enriching my experience, it's getting in the way of me having another gripping interaction with your amazing villain. Secondly, it's about time we got some new shit to play with in a completely different playground. Moving the game to Montana is technically different because it's in the US, yes, okay, but it's going to be largely the same, just swap out the Tibetan architecture for a Wendy's. It'll still be the same blend of shotguns, assault rifles, explosives, vehicles, and of course the fucking bow and arrow. It's all been done, I've sunk so many arrows into so many heads in Far Cry and I'm so done with it. Give me a futuristic Far Cry. I want to be an augmented android badass, tearing around a Blade Runner-esque world of sweeping orange deserts and neon-lit cities in a weaponised hovercar, armed to the teeth with teleporters, lasers and all manner of robot sidekicks. Lastly, double down on the systemic design and make the story systemic too. The story of Far Cry has always been very paint by numbers, lacking imagination and only really held together by the writing and the performances of the characters, in particular the villains. I want a Shadow of Mordor style Nemesis system, where the story is about the relationships that you build with both allies and enemies alike. If you display a love for all things sneaky, perhaps some allies will look favourably upon you and provide you with new and interesting goodies with which you can work from the shadows, whilst enemies will fortify their defences with more lookouts or cameras to give themselves a better chance of spotting you. If I shoot one of the baddies in the leg, I want him to show up next time on some fucking crutches, hobbling around and barking orders, scared to get caught up in the thick of the fight. And then if he sets his dogs on me and sends me fleeing for safety, I want him to goad me next time around, taunting me about how his doggos turned me into a scared little bitch. Having stories about crazy gameplay moments is one thing, Having unique stories about this one motherfucker who you had an amazing back and forth rivalry with, on top of those crazy emergent tactics you used to get the upper hand on him, that would be immense. Some of these changes are easier than others, and of course it's easy to sit here and reel off a dream game scenario. But whether it's these changes or something completely different, it just needs to be changes nonetheless. There are so many fantastic games being released year after year, that to be a standout now you really have to keep pushing the boundaries, and standing still is only as good as moving backwards. Far Cry needs to evolve, or run the risk of being left behind, which in the cutthroat world of AAA game development is a death sentence that will see you become yet another forgotten franchise. The game isn't even out yet, so of course this is all complete conjecture, but I do think my argument is founded in some sound logic. Ultimately the sales figures won't lie, and if people keep buying the games, then Ubisoft are going to keep milking that tea until it's dry as a bone, and rightly so. If people want it, then give it to them. But personally, selfishly so perhaps, I wouldn't mind seeing the sales figures take a slump this time around, in the hope that it'd be the kick up the arse that the series needs to elevate it from a good game to a great one. Thanks for watching. Fingers crossed for that Far Cry Blade Runner crossover, eh?
But now I'm found.